Okay, everybody, we are going to begin. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Emily Taylor, and I'm one of the co-organizers of Snake Week, along with Melissa Amarello from Advocates for Snake Preservation and Christina Zdenek from the Australian Reptile Academy and the IUCN Snake Specialist Group. We're so excited to have all of you joining us for our first webinar of our first ever Snake Week. So it's the year of the snake, and we decided that having World Snake Day alone just wasn't cutting it. We wanted to have a whole week to celebrate snakes, and we have dozens of events happening all around the world, including these awesome webinars. During this webinar, please keep your mic muted. And I wanted to make sure that everyone knew about the other webinars. So we've got 6 webinars this week. They're our official webinar series, kicking off with tonight with Ron Whitaker, who we're going to introduce in a moment. And then in addition, we have 7 additional, 5 still yet to come, IUCN Snake Specialist Group webinars. If you go to snakeweek.org/webinars, you can find out information for all of these, including how to pre-register for these. During this webinar, please keep your mic muted. If your mic is unmuted, we're going to go ahead and mute you. Please enter any questions that you have in the chat. So if you have questions for Ram as we go, enter those in the chat. And at the end, I'm going to go through and help ask those questions for Ram. And please, in the chat, limit your discussion there to questions for Ram. In other words, don't have a big side conversation about how awesome king cobras are. As much as we'd like that, I need to be able to go through these questions at the end in the amount of time we have and be able to answer these. Okay, so without any further ado, I'm so excited to introduce our very first speaker, Ram Whitaker. Now, I've never met Ram, and I hope to meet Ram someday because he's a true inspiration for snake scientists like me. Ram was born in the United States, but moved to India. He's going to tell you most of his personal story, though, so I'm not going to get into it, except to say that there's very few people out there who have done more for the field of herpetology, including snakes, but not just snakes. We're going to hear about more than just snakes tonight, too, than Ram Whitaker. He's truly changed the way that people see snakes. And so tonight we're going to be hearing about some of the history, some of the fun stories that I understand that he has to tell us about this, and maybe some lessons for the future and lessons for all of us about how we can maybe do a little bit of what Ram has done for our beloved animals. So without any further ado, take it away, Ram.
Wow, what's a wonderful introduction. Thanks, Emily. Greetings, everyone. I'm taking you on a 75-year journey, and in the next 45 minutes. So we're going to have to leave out the drugs and the rock and roll on this trip, or we'll just stick to snakes and crocodiles and things like that. But do pick up the book for some more of these stories, which we'll get into now. I was born in New York City, uh, and let's see the next slide. Uh, I, um, I, okay, yeah, I was just lucky to move to, well, let's start with New York. I was born in New York City, but my single mother raised us up, myself and my sister, in northern New York State at a little village called Hoosick. And man, it was wonderful because it was just nothing but woods and fields and snakes and frogs and little creatures that I could play with. So, and I had a remarkable mother because when I brought home this milk snake, she said, "Wow, how gorgeous." Now, which mother would say that when you bring a snake home? I mean, come on, get that thing out of here would be the usual reaction. So I was very lucky to have someone who encouraged me. So I don't remember this instant, but I'm sure it's the instant that just made me fall in love with snakes. They are the best. So I'm going to naturally, since it is a 75-year trip, I'm going to have to be very short about all these descriptions. I could go on for hours about my wonderful childhood in Hoosick. Next, please. But in 1951, when I was 8 years old, I moved to India with my mother and my new stepfather, who is an Indian and who was working in who set up one of India's first color motion picture laboratories back in the days when so-called Bollywood was just beginning. Well, for me, it was, I had arrived in the land of snakes, so good heavens. I mean, it was just one wonderful thing after the other. Moving to India was a very strange experience, as you can imagine. I grew up there. I managed to finish high school, which was very difficult because my boarding school was up in the hills, a place called Kodaikanal up in the Palni Hills, and we were surrounded by forest. I spent most of my time out wandering around looking for snakes, hunting and fishing, and uh, yeah, well, I did finish high school. They somehow wanted to get rid of me, and then I was packed off to the United States to ostensibly to go to college. Well, I did manage to go to college for a whole year. Um, and it was difficult because it was the University of Wyoming. And man, Wyoming was another place for hunting and fishing. So how could I stick to academics? Okay, so I finished that. Then I got all sorts of jobs. I became a merchant seaman. I traveled around the world. I became a traveling salesman. And you know all the jokes about traveling salesmen. Yeah, we lived them all. I worked for Bloomingdale's in New York City. But anyway, what I did though is I landed up in Florida and visited the Miami Serpentarium. Can we see the next slide, please? And it was just my life is just full of coincidences. When I got there, I wanted to meet William Haast, Bill Haast, but the guy at the ticket counter said, no, no, he doesn't meet anybody. He's very, very busy. So I wandered around the Serpentarium. I watched Bill extract venom and handle cobras like they were nothing. I mean, he was just so quiet and so confident. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But then when I was on my way out, this guy at the ticket counter said, "You seem to be very interested in snakes. Are you looking for a job?" And I said, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, the guy who was giving tour guides just quit without any warning, and we need someone else here. So would you be interested?" My eyes probably popped out of my head, and I said, "Of course I'm interested." And lo and behold, I guess I had put on a clean t-shirt that day, so I looked fairly presentable, and I was hired. And for the next 2 years, I had the pleasure of working at the Miami Serpentarium. What a fantastic experience. Not only at the Serpentarium, learning everything from venom extraction to looking after snakes in captivity, but then on every day off, I was out in the Everglades hunting for snakes, of course. And I was out with legendary snake hunters like Attila Bekke and Hayward Clamp and learning from them and learning a lot about the Everglades and learning a lot about snakes and their habits. And this is all going to be wonderful background for what I was going to do. The Miami Serpentarium was this wonderful place where, yes, of course, snakes were kept for venom extraction, but it was also a place where hundreds of thousands of visitors came to learn about snakes, learn positive things about snakes. And I guess my sort of goal was to do something like that in India. India was the land of snakes, but people were deadly frightened of them because, well, after all, a lot of people are killed by snakes. Can we see the next slide? So I did manage to do what I dreamed I was going to do, and that is to set up India's first snake park. This was way back in 1969, and yeah, it was again a series of coincidences. The local state forest department, the head of the wildlife division, rented me a half acre of land right in the middle of Madras or Chennai city, and we set up the snake park there. In the first year, we had almost 1 million visitors. Can you believe it? So yeah, so maybe people are negative about snakes, but they're very interested in them. And cobras, well, I can't say too much about how wonderful they are. Okay, next one, please. But at that same time, the World Wildlife Fund was starting in India just that year, and suddenly, I mean, conservation was a new word to us, And to us meetings, I had people joining me who were just as interested in the snakes as I was, young people from in India, and we worked together to do stuff like, well, look at the next slide. There was a frog leg industry which was harvesting literally tons of frogs every year, and they were being exported. This is unsustainable. I mean, I'm all for sustainable use of wildlife, but in this case, it was not sustainable, and we got it stopped. When I say stopped, we stopped. We didn't necessarily, doesn't mean I stopped it, but our efforts stopped it, and we published stuff in the newspapers and made a lot of noise. And the next slide, please. We also were kind of shocked to find that right near where we lived, there was a sea turtle market. Again, unsustainable. They weren't doing anything on, they were slaughtering males, females, whatever they could catch. And this meant we managed to get this stopped as well. And next slide. And perhaps even more dramatic was the slaughter of olive ridley sea turtles up in the state of West Bengal. Uh, this was an unknown thing going on. I mean, it was very well known up there, but no one else in India knew about it. So when these pictures were taken, they were published in a news magazine, and the then Prime Minister was shocked, as we were, that such a massive slaughter was going on without any control whatsoever, and it was stopped. And the next slide shows the girl who did this. Viji was a wonderful young lady who was intrepid, the most intrepid young lady I've ever met in my life. She spent months and months living in a cave in the rainforest here in South India, studying this turtle, which is the forest king turtle, which was then called Hyosamis sylvatica. When it was she rediscovered it after 100 years. It hadn't been seen. And when it was redescribed in her name because she died at a very young age when she was just 28 years old. So it's now Vijaya Kelly's. So Vijay was the one who took those pictures of all those olive ridley turtles being slaughtered. And man, she's got so much credit to her. What a wonderful girl. Next one, please. And talking about, I just mentioned earlier how many young people came to work for us at the snake park. And this includes Satish Bhaskar, and I nicknamed him Mr. Sea Turtle. He got so hung up on sea turtles. I mean, he spent, well, he, he was working on an engineering degree in the nearby Indian Institute of Technology, but he ended up coming over to the snake park as a volunteer, and he would, run down to the sea every day and swim, and he found that sea turtles were laying eggs on the beach there. So we started sea turtle walks and got people very interested in protecting sea turtle eggs from the poachers who were taking them home for eating or for selling. And he ended up walking. Man, he really did walk 1,000 miles of India's nesting beaches, and he set up the whole basis for what is sea turtle conservation today, and encouraged so many people to get into this whole sea turtle research and conservation scene. Okay, next one, please. Well, at that time, I mentioned World Wildlife Fund, and I was encouraged to do surveys in North India, particularly for crocodiles. So like Satish traveling thousands of kilometers, thousands of miles on beaches, I was doing thousands of miles on India's rivers and reservoirs and areas where there used to be crocodiles. I got very much deeply into reading all the old hunting books about, when the British used to go hunting, and they would say, yeah, the river teems with crocodiles, both the long-snouted variety and the wide-snouted variety. And they were talking about this, the mugger crocodile, which is our freshwater crocodile, and the saltwater crocodile, and of course, the gharial, the long-snouted fish eater. So during my surveys, I went to the same rivers where they talked about how many crocodiles they shot and how many they saw. But the things that I saw, I could hardly see any crocs at all left. I mean, rivers were already being diverted, they were being polluted. Crocs were being killed for their skins or just to, because people didn't like them. Eggs were being collected. People, tribal people in particular, collected the eggs and ate them. So crocs were undergoing something which could lead them to extinction. So we started breeding them at the snake park almost accidentally. We put a male and female together in a tiny enclosure that's about the size of this room, about 20 feet by 20 feet. And they started laying eggs, and we said, wow, we can do something about this. We were in touch with Tony Pooley in Africa, and we were in touch with Ted Joanna in Louisiana and other people who told us how to collect the eggs and how to, carefully mark them on the top so you don't turn the egg over and kill the embryo. So we started learning. This was all snail mail days, man. It was no, emails and click, 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 and quick answers. We'd wait for weeks for an answer, and it was just wonderful learning from these wonderful people. So yeah, next one. We decided my ex-wife and I, Zai Whitaker and I, got very serious, and we set up something called the Madras Crocodile Bank in 1976, right on the coastal road. Just behind that line of trees that you see there is the Bay of Bengal, the ocean. So, and the water that you see in this pond here is the water table. So it was a remarkable place. All we had to do was raise the money to build the wall all the way around it and just dig a deep hole, and the water just filled right up. So it was a fairly inexpensive way of starting, a crocodile bank. We called it a bank because it would become, and it is today, a gene bank for India's crocodilians as well as many foreign species as well. So we didn't know it. Next slide. But we were going to be very successful. Yeah, crocodiles breed much faster than you realize, or than we realized. And so we didn't really know what to do with it. I had proposed that we start a crocodile farm for commercial use of crocodiles. We're in touch with a local group of tribal people who I'll describe a little bit later. And we were going to start crocodile farming for them. And so it was going to be a commercial operation. But at that time, we first wanted to get crocodiles back into some sort of, from the edge of extinction to some sort of, safe way. So a lot of the various state governments who had noticed that their crocodiles had been depleted, the forest departments and wildlife departments were very happy to receive crocodiles from us. So we started sending crocodiles all over the country. Next one. Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay. I talked earlier about the gharial, and I mentioned the gharial. This is the most unique of all the crocodilians, and interestingly, besides size dimorphism, they are, this is the only croc that is sexually dimorphic. The adult males grow this large growth on the snout, which is called a gara in Hindi, which means a mud pot because it kind of looks like an inverted pot sitting on top of its nostrils. And this is a very interesting device because it's sitting on the nostrils, and when the gharial exhales forcefully, it makes a very loud noise, and it's almost like a flatulent noise coming across the river. So female crocodiles say, "Aha, here's the big male." The other big males say, "Oh, someone else in my territory." So it's a very prominent and very definite indication that he's the king of that part of the river. So we started breeding them in captivity, and luckily at that time the government of India started something called Project Crocodile, just the way they had started Project Tiger. And again, it was largely because of all the noise we were making about how endangered crocodiles were getting to be that the government really took action and started it wasn't so much breeding them in captivity the way we were doing, but collecting the last wild nests and hatching them in captivity and growing them up to about 3 feet long and then releasing them. Because as you probably know, the mortality rate of baby crocodiles is very, very high. Out of a whole nest of crocodile, maybe 30 or 40 babies, maybe only one or two will survive. But in captivity, you can keep them alive, 100% of them. Next one. And the gharial, yeah, is an amazing creature. My colleague, Jeff Lang, one of the top croc biologists in the world, has been working on crocs with us in India for over 25 years now, and concentrates his work now with a team on the Chambal River in North India, where uh, the last really safe croc population of gharial exists. And what he's learning is something unbelievable. The gharial males, for example, do a lot of very, very heavy mothering, so to speak, of all their babies. And you'll have a sandbank where 12 or 15 female gharial have laid their eggs. So it's sort of a mass nesting area, and it's guarded by this one uh, super dad, as we've called him. And yeah, see the next slide. Uh, yeah, lots and lots of babies. So, sometimes 500 babies in one place. Yeah, when I did the surveys back in 1970s, the early 70s actually, I counted less than 200 of all sizes of gharial in North India, the last sort of places where it lived. I mean, they still existed for a few of them in Nepal, a few of them in Bangladesh. They had almost gone extinct in Pakistan, but less than 200 of all sizes in those days. And now we're counting over 600 wild adults and a total of more than 3,000 gharial in these rivers, and mostly again in the Chambal River. So it's just wonderful that the government had kicked in and done so much to protect the gharial and to the getting people on board to not kill them anymore, not collect the eggs anymore, and releasing thousands of babies so that the population is now finally recovering. It's been a long struggle, a long uphill battle, but it's working. Next one. All right, now shifting gear here, I want to introduce you to the Irla tribals. These people, I was very lucky that when I was in school in South India, I had learned the local language, Tamil, and heard about the Irlas through a newspaper article. And I went down there. I had uh, and met them and walked and went out with them snake hunting, and I was just blown away. I mean, these guys would find, I mean, they spent their lives hunting and fishing. And a lot of the animals that they used to hunt, of course, were now no longer, they were no longer allowed to do it because of the various wildlife laws. But they were excellent rat catchers too. And we nicknamed them paddy bunnies because that sounds a little bit better. But but they are definitely edible, and they're clean rats. They're out in the fields just eating rice, and they're out in these clean fields and stuff. So I know it doesn't sound so great, but yeah, I can tell you from personal experience, rats are great. Next one. In those days, again, we're talking about early to mid 70s, we estimated up to 10 million snakeskins were being exported each year, and the Irlas, these tribal people, were the main hunters of cobras and Russell's vipers and pythons, and selling their skins to these wholesalers, making a pittance out of it, but still making a living. And this is how they learned so much about snakes and their habits. So the exports, we agitated a lot, and again, like I said, it's not just me and my team, but a lot of people, activists around the country, and the government itself got the exports of snakeskins stopped because again, it was an unsustainable industry. females, males, babies, and any snakes were being killed at any time of year during the breeding season. So it just wasn't sustainable. So luckily, the exports were stopped in the 1970s. Next one, please. Yeah, the Irlas are incredible people, and this is just a nice photograph to show some of my Irla friends. Next one. Um, yeah, when I met them, I realized that I hardly knew anything about snakes. I mean, they were the people who I could really learn from, and I did go out with them. But unless you're a 3-year-old kid going out with your daddy who is an Irla tribal, you don't really learn that much. I watched them go out and they'd see a slight track in the sand, and they'd say, Cobra went this way yesterday, and then they point to a rat hole, and it went into that rat hole, and then, oh no, it came out again. I say, what? Yeah, and they say, yeah, you can see how the sand is pushed to one side. I said, okay, I believe you. And they'd say, what? It's gone into that hole and it's there. And they'd start digging and digging for about 10 or 15 minutes with a small, short crowbar. And sure enough, pull out a nice, healthy cobra. So that's how I learned what little I could from them. So, yeah, but like I said, the skin industry was being shut down. Well, it did get shut down. And a lot of these airless, hundreds of them, were destitute. They really had no other job. This is what their only skill. So now what are they going to do? So next slide. So together in 1978, we set up the Irla Snake Catchers Cooperative Society, and this was to produce venom and sell it to the anti-venom production, the pharmacological companies. Okay, I had learned the technique of extraction of venom and processing the venom using a freeze dryer when during my years working for Bill Haast. So basically, I was teaching them the stuff that I had learned years and years ago, years before, in Florida, and they took to it very quickly. It was just a, a wonderful experience to see that they could continue their livelihood of catching snakes. The snakes were kept for 3 weeks and then released back to the wild. The mud pots that you see in the background there are what we used to call low-cost housing. It may look very simple compared to the sort of uh, you look at other venom production places around the world today, and they have kind of fancy cages and stuff for the snakes. But these were actually for a 3-week stay pretty good because mud pots are very cool and it gets very hot down there uh, where we live down here. And so mud pots worked out to be very well. So yeah, releasing snakes back to the wild, yeah, admittedly, is not such a great idea because you can never release them exactly where you caught them, and translocating any animal can be a pretty dangerous thing for the poor animal. So we're working very hard to go on to follow what's called the WHO. The World Health Organization has mandated that snakes have to be kept in captivity rather than released back to the wild. But that's going to be something a very big change for the earless to start looking after snakes permanently in captivity. Okay, next one. Yeah, most of you have either seen or know about how to extract venom, and this is a Russell's viper. It's a very seriously dangerous snake. It's one of the so-called big four venomous snakes of India, and we're more and more we're coming to the conclusion now that we've gotten a lot of data from a lot of hospitals that this snake is killing is actually causing most of the human deaths in India, which is very high. I'll get into a bit more of that later. Next, please. All right, I'm just going to come up to the very near past. In 2017, I was invited. My wife and I were invited along with Masi and Buddyville, two Irlas, snake catchers, to come over to Florida. The University of Florida, Frank Mazzotti, who's heading the invasive species program, and the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission invited us over to try a bit of transfer of technology, so to speak, transferring tribal knowledge to the snake hunters in Florida. It didn't work too well. The Florida snake hunters, as marvelous as they are, primarily used vehicles to run up and down the levees in the Everglades, finding pythons as they basked or as they crossed the road either at night or during the day. Whereas the Irlas would get right down into the bushes, find the shedded skins or the scats, and find out where they're making their nests. And this is what we were hoping we could teach the local snake hunters. Well, it didn't work too well, and I still think there's scope for the Irlas to come over and do a better job. But well, the one day that we did have fantastic success, they found 8 pythons on spoil islands in the Everglades, and that was a fantastic day. So more on this later. Next one, please. All right, I have always been obsessed with king cobras. Who hasn't? I mean, all of us are snake people, I guess, out there. So, so we set up the Agumbe Rainforest Research Station in 2005, thanks to my late mother, who willed me the money that I bought the land for this, and the Whitley Fund for Nature and Rolex Awards for Enterprise put in money that we were able to set up this fantastic field station. Next one. It's a magical place. It's a very high rainfall area, and the biodiversity is intense. It's something we're just scratching the surface of. I started something I euphemistically called the biodiversity index, and it's just piling up and piling up with a number of things, everything from fungi and mites all the way up to the hornbills and primates that live in the forest there. Next one, please. Yeah, it also Agumbe, it sounds like an African name, doesn't it? Agumbe is actually the wettest place in South India. 25 feet of rain each monsoon. I mean, it's a little bit unbelievable. People joke about, yeah, you can wash your clothes in a Gombe, but then you have to take them 50 miles away to dry them out. And for some reason, the rainfall focuses on that place. It's about 800 feet up in elevation. It's not that high, but just inland from the Indian Ocean. And the monsoon rains just focus right in there. It's just amazing. Next one. Yeah, this is just a glimpse of the forest behind our field station, the stream that runs through it. You can imagine traipsing around in here, how wonderful it must be. I mean, every step you take, you're finding something new. Some bug, some frog, some I I just can't begin to explain how wonderful it is. Okay, next one. And of course, there are a little bit of things which bother you, like leeches. But really, it looks much worse than it actually is. And you learn to let them take the blood, and rather than rip them off and create a little scar tissue, and it starts itching, and that's not too good. Just let them fill themselves up and drop off by themselves. Everything will be okay. Next one, please. Okay, king cobras. We could go on, a webinar for several hours. I know a lot of you are as interested as I am in this wonderful animal. And in order to learn a little bit more about them, not a little bit, a lot more about them, we started the first king cobra telemetry project. Next one. Yeah, we found out from the gentleman sitting in the middle of this picture on the right uh, is Matt Good, who had radio telemetred hundreds and hundreds of rattlesnakes in Arizona. He's at the University of Arizona, and he taught us and taught the doctors that are here how to insert these tiny transmitters. They're just they weigh less than a half an ounce, and they go on for up to 150 weeks, and they have a range of about a third of a mile. So you can track king cobras through the forest. Of course, the king cobra has to go uh, under anesthesia in order to insert it, but it's just amazing how you can learn everything about the secret lives of king cobras by doing telemetry. I mean, it just opens so many things to us. Okay, next one, please. And it attracted a lot of young herpetologists, or I should say, young students, naturalists, who just were waiting for an opportunity like this. Uh, king cobras, excuse me, are very conveniently uh, wake up when the sun comes up in the morning and then sort of crash in the evening around, just around sunset. So it was fairly easy to walk around and follow them. Right at the beginning of this, we always told the researchers, look, be very careful. Don't let the king cobra see you. We don't want to interfere with their natural activity. That was all bullshit because the king cobra very soon got used to being followed around. They'd look at you, they'd come crawl right next to you. It was almost a relationship that was growing with these young researchers. And the amount of data that they recorded, the amount of sightings they had was just amazing. Next one, please. When you catch a snake and release it in the wild, you don't know what's going on. But this time we really were able to see what goes on and what goes on. This one snake, for example, traveled over 50 miles. I mean, we never realized that a snake could actually travel 50 miles. I mean, it just didn't seem believable. But don't forget, these are 12-foot long males and 9-foot long females. So these are big snakes and they have to cover a lot of area. Next one, please. And this is some of the stuff that we got to observe. And like I said, the king cobras, when they start doing male combat, they just totally turn off from what was around them. You can get right up to them, and they're just concentrating on this combat. One wants to beat the other. There's no biting. It's just pinning one. Uh, one pins the other one until they get totally wiped out. Sometimes this goes on for a couple of hours and the winner gets to mate. Usually there's a female sometime somewhere close by. This this is the reason they're fighting. Next one. And they eat snakes, as you know. Not only snakes though, they eat rat snakes, cobras, kraits, pit vipers. Cobras and kraits and pit vipers and Russell's vipers are the snakes that kill people. So king cobras are very helpful. Everyone should have one in their backyard, I jokingly tell people. But they occasionally eat monitor lizards too, which kind of tells you a bit about, evolutionary things. Monitor lizards must smell, they must smell like snakes because the king cobra eats them, but never touches mammals or birds. Next one. The males are much larger than the females, and we got to observe mating, a lot of interesting courtship behaviors. The male butts the female and she spreads a hood and she is very submissive and she's got to be very careful because occasionally we have seen the males kill and eat the female. We don't know why this happens. I mean, it just evolutionarily speaking, it just doesn't make sense, but it does happen. Next one, please. And watching a female king cobra make her nest is just magical, totally magical. They, a snake without limbs able to pile up this huge pile of, this is an incredible incubation chamber too, rainproof and everything. Next one, please. And a lot of our work is teaching people about snakes and teaching tolerance. These people patrol the forest department patrol areas near the forest. And if they encounter a king cobra, chances are they might kill it with one of their AK-47s. We try to tell them, look, the snake is not out to get you. If you see it, it'll go the other way. And it does work. It does help. People have not killed king cobras in Agumbe for a long time, so it is working. Next one. And the local people are very tolerant, and they even worship king cobras there, which is wonderful. That is one way that conservation can work very, very well. Next one, please. But not so elsewhere. Elsewhere, king cobras are killed on site. and we're helping to stop this by we've collaborated with a filmmaking team called the Gaia Group, who made a film called Living with the King. Next one. And just we are the Western Ghats is a UN World Heritage Center, and like I was talking about the biodiversity, Draco is the flying dragon, and to me it's the pterodactyl. It's a tiny lizard, but when you see one flying past, it's just such an amazing experience. One of my absolute favorite reptiles, Draco. Next one. Okay, we jumped into serious filmmaker. This is my wife, Janaki Lennon, on location in North India in Rajasthan, a desert area with a cobra. And like I said, we became serious filmmakers. I got totally obsessed with the idea. Okay, the snake park and the crocodile bank were reaching hundreds of thousands of people, but now we could reach millions of people. Next one, please. And yeah, sure enough, we made a film called King Cobra in 1997, and it gets an Emmy Award, which blew me away. I didn't even know what an Emmy Award was in those days, but apparently it was pretty big stuff. And well, millions of people did see it, and you can watch it on YouTube, actually. I'll give you a link after we have this talk. Next one, please. And we made a children's a movie for children about a boy who befriends a crocodile, which got a lot of good reviews and went to film festivals in Beijing and in Tehran and in Moscow. And in Scandinavia, it was shown on Christmas Eve, which I was really excited about. Next one, please. And then we made a film called Supersized Croc for the BBC Natural World, which was a lot of fun, as you can see here. This is a Australian freshwater crocodile doing its incredible gallop past past me. Next one. And a film called Crocodile Blues, which we made at the time when gharial were actually undergoing a horrible die-off. Over 100 crocodile gharial died in the Chambal River. So luckily, the die-off was by some local toxins which entered the water, which we could never figure out what it was. But luckily, they're still okay now. But this is a film you must watch as well. Next one. And then a complete digression from reptiles. We made this film called Leopard's 21st Century Cats, again for BBC Natural World. Thanks to an experience that we had, two of our dogs were attacked by leopards where we lived outside the city. And we just wanted to know more about leopards. And so we met up with leopard experts and we proposed the idea of a film about them. And yeah, it's a very interesting film. Try to get a chance to watch it. Next one. And the 1 Million Snake Bites film was something which now I'm working on very hard, the whole idea of snake bite. Next one. Yeah, this is called the snake bite capital of the world. And I figure that the only way to get people to tolerate snakes is to solve the snake bite problem. And we are trying to do something about it. We've got 900 million agricultural people who live in the countryside, 900 million of them whom we have to reach. We're reaching some of them, and our partners around the country are working hard along with us, but we've got a lot of work to do to get people to avoid being bitten. Next one, please. These are the big four: cobra, krait, Russell's viper, and saw-scale viper. It's hard to believe it, but 60,000 men, women, and children die of snake bite in India every year. It's just an unbelievably ignored health problem in India. And I know that there are going to be other speakers on on these webinars who are going to talk more about snake bite, and particularly in Africa, which has similar huge problems of rural people getting bitten and dying of snake bite. Next one. And I just keep arguing and keep shouting that prevention is leagues much better than the cure. And we are trying to teach people about snakes, learning about them, using a light at night when you walk out. I walked out one night in my sarong barefoot because I heard our dog was barking, and I stepped right on a Russell's viper. It didn't bite me. I don't know why. My feet were bare, but it's hissed like a pressure cooker, and I jumped a mile. And it just gave me such a fantastic lesson. Use a light at night and keep rats away from your house and your yard. These are all things. Sleep under a mosquito net. These are all things which can help you to not get bitten by a snake. Snakes are very common in India because of the incredible number of rats we have, rats and mice. Next. Yeah. So thanks very much for your kind attention. I just want to say, besides don't get bit, please go to King Cobra, thekingcobra.org, because all those films that you saw, I mentioned earlier, are listed there with the links to them so that you can see them. I'm sure some of them will be interesting to some of you. And if you want to get in touch with me, I'm at the rare uh, email ID of kingcobra@gmail.com. And I'm very happy to hear from you, and I'm very happy to communicate. Next one, please. Yeah, and this is my commercial break. Please buy this book. I'm sure you'll get a kick out of it. This is number one of a three-part autobiography. So the Janiki, my wife, and I are working on volume two right now. And it'll be out pretty soon. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Thanks so much, everybody. It's just been wonderful talking with you. And now I'm ready to answer questions or whatever you have, comments. Thanks so much.
Rom, do you want to show the videos or do you want to do questions?
Oh yeah, we have two short videos to show. One is about about king cobras, well, capture of king cobra, and one is about capture of pythons in Florida. I think you'll enjoy them. They're just 3 minutes each. I know you'll enjoy them.
So while we do these videos, folks, put your questions in the chat.
Good. Hold on. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Go there. Okay. Right. Okay. Okay. Take it back.
Panitia mama. Berarti 15 menit 20 menit. Hah? Agak lama. That's the most tiring thing I've ever thought, man. Tell him you're very brave. Yeah, yeah. Masuk ano? Kita jumpa besok pagi ya. Iya. Yeah, I stepped right on it, man. Oh, wow. Hi. Okay, what are you gonna do? Yeah. Oh. Okay, let's bag it up. We can. Give it a try. We'll get this on video. Ridiculous.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rom. That was so great. I was
Thank you. Thanks, Emily.
a little bit tense from watching the teeth and the python and the king cobra capture. So that was really awesome. So
Yeah,
awesome. Well, if we're gonna do some Q&A now, and then
sure.
I'm gonna make sure everyone here knows that we have recorded this in case you came in late, and we're gonna post it to our YouTube channel and send everyone an email link later on. But first, I want to go through a few questions for you. So,
Sure.
all right, let's see. Okay, so one person has a question about why it is that the males are larger in king cobras because they've read that in many other snakes the females are larger.
That is a ever-present question. And what's interesting to me is that In the cases where the males are generally larger than the females, those are the snakes that do male combat. There's got to be some very interesting reason for that. And I'd like to talk to some of my professional colleagues who could answer something like that. But yeah, I don't really have an answer to that question. One thing about females being larger is, of course, they have to carry the eggs or carry the young. So it could be we should look at which are the ones that are egg layers and which are the ones that are live bearing and sort of sort this out. But, let me mull that question over. It's not something I'm going to come up with spilled out right now. Sorry.
No problem. Okay, another question was about the king cobra who traveled 50 miles.
Yeah.
Was about over what time period was that approximately?
That's a really good question, and I just didn't have time to go in through all the intricacies about this, but this was very interesting because this was a translocated animal. And over a 9-month period, he traveled 50 miles. And we did this purposely. We caught him in one place and let him go in a completely different place to see what would happen. And it was insane. And it was not a good thing to do for this poor snake, but we did learn something from it, which we have, sort of broadcast to all the other people doing capture and relocating of snakes that you shouldn't do it. Because when we caught and radio telemetered a king cobra in one place and let him go in the same place, he would stay in the same circular pattern of an area of about 10 to 15 square miles. That was his home range. And it's fascinating that is also the same kind of home range that an adult leopard has. 15 to 20 square miles is usually the leopard's home range. And here's a big snake with the same home range as a big mammal like that. And it's all based on feeding, the food resources, where the snake can hide, where the snake can get water, where the snake can find mates. But translocating it, just heads off and does a 50-mile trip around around the countryside.
If I can ask my own follow-up question on that is, have you documented in general that translocation of those king cobras long distances, they don't do well like so many other snakes do when you move them long distances? Is that
Yeah,
true?
this one disappeared, so we don't really know. But we do know a lot about other snakes, and they don't survive well. It's, you know, the forest department here unfortunately says, okay, you've caught snakes. The people in the Irla Cooperative are catching snakes in rice fields and in agricultural areas. And then we go for releases. The forest department says, don't release them in the fields, release them in the forest where they belong. Well, they don't belong in the forest because there's not a huge number of rodents and water and everything that there are in agricultural fields. But we tried to let them go in agricultural fields, and the people came out with sticks and sort of started chasing us. So, yeah, what to do? So the WHO mandate about keeping snakes in captivity for venom extraction is definitely something we have to follow. It's just a tough transition for the earless to do this. So this is a complicated question.
Yes. Um, well, I'm going to ask you another complicated one from the chat then. What is the biggest challenge in solving the human reptile conflict, whether it's snake or crocodile?
Uh, yeah, I think our whole thing is teaching people how to learn to live with animals like the dangerous animals like crocodiles. Crocodiles are a bit easier. There are parts of India, there's a place called Charotar in the state of Gujarat, and you can look online about this. And if anyone wants to communicate with me about it, I'll gladly tell them, where people and crocs are living very well together. And it's just a question of people not trying to translocate them or capture them or giving crocs a hard time. And the crocs seem to recognize this. They really do. And they just don't bother people. As far as snakes are concerned, yeah, that's a big problem because, well, it's the snakes like the Russell's viper and the cobra, which are, two of the big dangerous snakes in India, are, although they're relatively large snakes, they're hiding in the bushes and they're trying to keep a low profile. But if someone walking through the bushes and not wearing shoes, and that's invariably what a farmer is in India, he's shoeless, steps on the snake and the snake reacts by biting. So we tell people just watch where you're walking, use a stick if you have to depart bushes where you're walking. Uh, yeah, it's easy to say this, but like I said earlier, when I went out one night without a light because it was my backyard. I mean, what the heck? I'm just walking in my backyard, no big deal, and I step right on a Russell's Viper. That happens to people too. So people have to use a light at night. That would probably cut snake bite accidents in half if people would just use a light at night when they're walking.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, we have a few more questions. Do you have time still, or we're past time, but I could ask a couple more if you can stay for
No,
another.
I'm fine. I'm sitting here. I'm great.
Great, thank you. So here's a practical question. Someone has asked if they rescue a snake, how far should they release it? What's the optimal distance for like a
Home range.
or crate in their home?
Home range.
And so, given that we don't know for sure what that is there a rule of thumb? Like here in the United States with rattlesnakes, we use a quarter mile. What is it
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, I mean, you have to use rule of thumb because we don't really know that much. But one thing that we do tell people, if you have to sort of rescue, as they call it, a snake, and it's a non-venomous snake, convince the people there that it's not going to hurt anybody's and it's going to be very helpful because it eats rodents. And if you remove it, its niche may be filled by a venomous snake. So leave that non-venomous snake there. If it's in the house, yeah, but I mean, you don't want it in your bed or something. Take it outside and drop it in the garden, and you probably won't see it again. It's an accident that you've seen it anyway. It's probably been there for the last 5 years or more and you've just seen it, accidentally came into your house because it smelled a rodent and came in. So leave the non-venomous snakes there. Venomous snakes, yes, you do have to take them out, but as close as possible to where you caught them. If you're talking about a city, there's no answer to that. And, as sad as it sounds, it's probably better to euthanize the snake rather than taking it out and releasing it somewhere. But who knows? More study has to be done on this and to answer this question properly. It's a very important question.
I'm going to ask a quick Guriel question to change it up a little bit. What's the
Sure.
purpose of the bump on the end of is it just the males that have the bump, or what's the purpose of the bump on their nose?
Yeah, the male is the one that grows this gara, as it's called, which gave it its name Gariel. It's a Hindi word which means mud pot. And the gara only grows when the male reaches adulthood at 10 or 12 years. And it grows larger and larger and sits right on top of the nostrils and actually modulates the hissing sound into this sound that I very gently said, sort of sound, which it spread, you can hear it across the river very, very loud. And the females hear it and says, okay, there's Big Daddy over there. And the other males hear it as well. And, it's a very interesting way that one male can communicate his dominance to the others. But interestingly, it's the only crocodile in the world that has this sexually dimorphic character. All other crocs, you can't tell males from females except by size.
Okay, so we're going to do two more questions.
Sure.
Penultimate question. Do you think that attitudes towards snakes have gotten better or worse in, your years of snake handling in your lifetime, in your experience?
Well, I can speak about India. We've got a mass of people who are interested in herpetology right now, which, back in those early days, there was hardly a handful, and those are the few that I showed you, like Vijay and Satish were a couple of them, and several others who would come to the snake park as volunteers just for something to do because they didn't like their studies or they didn't like what they were doing and they just came for out of interest. But nowadays, you've got very serious college uh, courses that people can take. You've got organizations all over the country. You've got thousands of so-called snake rescuers who are doing, they're on phone. They give their phone numbers to all over the place to say that they'll come and rescue a snake if it's in your house or in your garden. So yeah, things have changed greatly.
Wonderful. And we'll end on one that is one of the best questions I think I've ever seen. What would you want people to remember of you and the amazing work that you have done?
Just what can I say?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess keep up the legacy of it. I mean, I think that my obsession with snakes and other reptiles is something that I, it was very unique in the early days when I was a kid growing up, and now it's becoming spread wide, and let's spread it wider. I mean, I always disparagingly call mammal people, oh, those smelly animals, mammals, ugh, you know. So, so, you know, because people used to say reptiles, ugh, but now, yeah, just keep up this positive attitude, and it's really helping animals, helping reptiles make a comeback.
Well, I will definitely say that that's what I've heard over and over from so many people around the world is that you have been really an inspiration, that your story about how you were inspired to do this, you have then gone on to inspire hundreds, probably even thousands of other people. I was just in Indonesia, and Agus Putra was my guide, and he was talking about his first king cobra he saw with you and
Oh,
how
wow.
it inspired him. So that's just
Wonderful.
funny. And I got to
Yeah,
see king cobra with him, and it was incredible. So
that's great.
I think that you are living that um, you're living that goal right now. So it's been a pleasure to meet you online. I hope to meet you in person someday. And thank you so much for speaking to us tonight.
Yeah, I hope so. Hope to meet you all someday. Come on over. Come to Agumbe and see king cobras in the wild. I think you'd really enjoy that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Please go to snakeweek.org/webinars and pre-register for the rest of our webinars this week. And everyone, let's give a virtual round of applause to Ram.
Thanks so much, everybody. And thanks a heck of a lot, really. See
Thank
you
you.
all. All the best.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.